And Diana, I see you're on. We might put you on the spot too as we get into it because Diana was also at Mega Camp. What'd you guys think of Mega Camp?
It was fun.
I loved it.
I'm still tired. No.
It is. The
No,
days
it's
are
a lot. Been a couple days for sure.
I'm still tired.
I think. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I think it was one of the better conferences I've been to in a while. Like, I mean, I always love family reunion. I haven't been to Mega Camp since 2019 because of COVID, and then I wasn't able to go last year. However, just the content, the speakers, just the structure of it, I thought was put together very well.
I would agree. And it amazes me. It never ceases to amaze me, I suppose, how willing these agents are to share. I mean, it was just agent interview after agent interview of value of what's working in their business. And it's not something people try and hide. They're sharing. And it just blows me away, that culture. And I came back happy and loving KW even more. So I wanted to get started with Chris might have been the only one at the CEO Summit. Am I correct?
Correct. I did not go.
Okay. So Chris, I'll probably pick your brain here. I know it's somewhat just because I have listened to podcasts wrapping up the CEO Summit, and I thought that there were some really valuable notes. But who was your favorite speaker at the CEO Summit, Chris?
Oh, that's a tough one. I really enjoyed Tim Grover. I thought his message was great. Tony DeCello was awesome to hear from. Although he was a little slower with his words, his message and just the way he coaches still is so impactful. And then Molly was incredible. I thought just her story and what she went through and everything about her family and where she's at now. It's just an incredible story. So if you haven't watched that movie, Molly's Game, highly suggest to go and watch it.
I was going to ask that. That's on Netflix, correct?
And I'm taking my video off.
Hey, whatever you need to do, Chris, it's A-okay.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. And then question for you. So Tim Grover, am I right in my understanding that he was Michael Jordan's coach? Like life coach type of a thing?
Yeah, so he started off with Michael Jordan and then Kobe Bryant and oh God, what's the other guy from Miami that played with LeBron? But he has coached some very high level NBA stars. And what's that? Dwayne Wade, yeah, Dwayne Wade. The funny story is when he went to the Chicago Bulls, he sent a letter out to 14 of the teammates and did not send one to Michael Jordan because he had his own limiting beliefs that he wasn't going to be able to land Michael Jordan as a client and that he would work his way up to him eventually. Well, everybody in the room was talking about how they received this letter, and Michael Jordan was actually the only one that ended up reaching out to him. And when he reached out to him, he didn't even know that was Michael Jordan's team that he was talking to. Like, they kept him totally in the dark. He went through this crazy interview phase. And even when he went to Michael Jordan's house, he jokes that he wore Reeboks to his house. And because he had no idea where he was going. So it's just an incredible story. And he talked about obsession versus, being interested versus obsession. And I want to get this right. So he said, interested, hold on, let me find it. Sorry. Oh, obsessed people manage focus. and interested people manage time. And that if you really want to go deep in something, you need to be obsessed. And not to take that as a bad word. Just being obsessed means like, just kind of how Gary says, having your one thing and being all in and knowing everything there is to know about that one thing.
Yeah. What is your obsession? What do you need to be obsessed about? The podcast I was listening to that wrapped up the CEO Summit, Linda McKissick was on it, and she said, it was a light bulb moment to her because she felt like, okay, I need to have an obsession around a recruiting number. And, you know, if you have a sales team, maybe you have an obsession around the number of units sold. And I really liked that as well. I also have written down here, he said, winners, the most successful, don't let anybody else dictate their emotions, their thoughts or emotions. You elevate yourself when you come into a space of you control you, not someone else motivating or demotivating you. So find out what that obsession is, and you have control over you. Don't let somebody else's, derail or demotivate you. What ahas from Molly Bloom? I have a couple from the podcast. She was awesome, it sounds like.
So when she talked about authenticity a lot and effective presence. So like just being present in each and every moment. The one thing I thought that was awesome. So one thing about all these speakers too is they talked about mindset. It all came back to mindset. And I'm just curious, when you hear mindset, what do you guys think about?
I feel like I always look at it
Anybody?
like a positivity scale almost. And I know that's not necessarily right, but that's the first thing that comes to mind for me.
I'd say mindset is the first thing.
Yeah.
That's where you
I
just,
think and I think we've all been programmed to think mindset is positivity, right? Being positive, staying positive, having that right mindset around things. Well, when you take it a little deeper, each one of these speakers actually talked about this, and Molly mentioned this. It has more to do about that voice that's in your head, right? We all have it, that roommate that doesn't stop talking, and it's always going to be there. It's always going to create these thoughts. And the real thing around mindset is being able to separate the two and not listen to those thoughts. And that's what Molly said, is she's like, I have all those thoughts. And I think it was her dad that said, well, Molly, we all have those thoughts. The key is to not listen to them and to control your actual actions and your mindset and your thoughts. And that's just really powerful, I think.
That's huge. Chris, I don't know if it was her or somebody else, but it sounded like I heard Linda and Dana on the podcast both say that what was effective in their lead generation, whether it was Molly, it was somebody at the CEO Summit, and then several agents thereon, people were saying we're still in a time that what got them more business was calling somebody and having life conversations, how are you conversations, and not this is what interest rates are doing right now conversations. And I thought that was interesting. And that reminds me of mindset as well. That might be why I thought it was Molly. It's, not, go ahead.
Me, Cello talking about that. And he was saying we need to stop having the conversations around rates and buying, selling, and start having conversations around lifestyles, what's happening with people. So more relationship conversations versus market conversations.
Exactly. And the conversation might end up turning into real estate, but until you have life conversations with them, you almost don't earn the right to even have the real estate conversations. One other thing Molly said that I do want to review, she said her demise ended up was making some decisions that were out of integrity and out of what her values were. And she said, no matter who the people, or no matter who you are or what you do, at some point, the people around you will win and take over. And just what an aha that is, because like, what is the group you're around? That can help you for the positive, and it can also move you towards the negative. And the group of people she was around really ended up being her demise at one point, and she started to make decisions that questioned her integrity. And it's interesting that almost every conference or conversation you're at, it seems to still come back around to, you know, you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I think that in real estate too, who are we surrounding ourselves with? That's what makes a difference too, even coming into the office versus working from home. It's awesome that we can work from home, but you know, when you get in there and you are in the ethos and the energy of people on the phone, you end up being the sum of those parts. So I liked that too.
Yeah. And can I add one last thing?
Yeah.
With Tim Grover, I started reading his book, Winning. And if you haven't read Winning or Relentless, I highly recommend. Relentless was great. But he talked about winning. And the one thing he said is that there's nothing normal about winning. And then he goes on to, he asks people what their definition of winning is. And then most people say, you know, and I don't want to fill in your words, but fun, exciting, motivated, like all these positive words, right? When you ask the greats what winning is, they have a totally different definition. Hard, challenging, unforgiving, relentless, like all of these difficult words, because winning is not normal. So what are you doing that's abnormal if you want to continue to win? And winning, he says, is going to challenge you every single minute of the day. And when you do win, it's a moment, and you may not stay there, it may not last. So how are you going to continue to keep winning?
That's awesome. Anything else you'd want to add from the CEO Summit?
There's a lot, but no, I mean, I think we hit the main point.
I am curious, did Gary speak at the CEO Summit at all, or was it just these?
Yeah, he talked about, here, let me pull it up real quick. He talked about the 12 people mistakes CEOs make. So that's what him and Jay talked about. And he went over his 12 points, which was really good. And it's all about hiring talent and people that you have on your team and who you're surrounding yourself with. So that was good too.
That's awesome. Okay. So another event that I know Carly, Chris, and Diana were at was the KWYP Advance. And I had like FOMO that I wasn't in KWYP because I heard it was amazing. Could each one of you, would you want to share your biggest takeaway from that moment or from that part of the night?
Anybody? I don't know if there's like one. We heard, so if you guys were not there, we heard from Wendy, Gary. I'm looking to see the second speaker's name because I'm not remembering it
Her
right
name was
now.
Michelle, but I don't know what her last name was. She runs the KW Wellness.
Kimberly.
Kimberly.
Oh yeah, Kimberly. Okay, I thought it was Michelle.
Kimberly, Gary, and Jason Abrams. Yeah. Well, and they all brought like super different energy, which was kind of cool. Jason said a couple really interesting things. I'm pulling up the notes here.
Jason, I have to say, is I think my all-time favorite speaker in the Keller Williams world.
Oh, I agree. His main thing was double down on your strengths
And your database.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people are looking for leads all the time, and you have this database that you need to work. Gary said there are two types of people, fearful and fearless. 90% of people are fearful. I thought that was kind of cool.
Mhm. That resonates so much with this time right now. It seems everybody is living in a state of fear rather than being fearless.
Yeah. Kimberly talked about wellness. I'll admit I always come last. Everything I do gets interrupted. I never put my phone down. Every time I try to fix it, I don't. So appreciate that they try to remind us. I just need to get there to where I do the things.
I went to, speaking of KW Wellness, they had, full disclosure, like I have been professionally diagnosed with ADHD, and they had like this whole ADHD class that was awesome. And I've literally thought that might be a perfect power up for us someday. The wellness community is new, and I think it's really, just like Carly said, it's something we always put ourselves last, but I think it goes back into mindset. If we don't put ourselves last, like, it probably is going to help in mindset. But Chris, did I interrupt you? It looked like you were getting ready to say something.
I was just going to say, like, that was probably with Gary, one of my favorite sessions with him, because he was just very authentic, very real, answered a bunch of questions about himself, which I thought was kind of cool, and like his lifestyle and what he does. And, one thing he mentioned was that 15 minutes a day, he put in I think a 75 or 100 yard, golf hole on the side of his house. And 15 minutes a day, he goes and practices golf when he gets home. And he goes, the things I want to get better at, and I'm paraphrasing, I spend 15 minutes a day doing that. And he talked about playing the guitar. He talked about his golf game and his short game. And he talked about some other things. But it made me realize, like, if we want to be better at things, and you guys might have heard the statistic, like if you spend 15 minutes a day, 5 days a week for a year, you're going to be 90% better than everybody else at that task or role or thing. And
Wow.
he didn't say it like that, and yet I was pretty confident that that's why he's doing that, is because he wants to be as good as he can in specific things. And he also said, like, one of his things about real estate is he's obsessed with real estate. He's like, this is my obsession, and I want to know as much as I can to keep improving and helping this industry, essentially. And I just think that's awesome. And he's like, I'm never going to retire. He's like, he talks about his friends that ask him to go on trips or, go out to do things, and his friends are retired and they're traveling or whatever. He's like, that's just not me. He's like, I'm here for this company, essentially, and that's what I'm going to continue to do until I can't do it anymore. And I don't know, I think that's pretty awesome as a leader of a company like that, to just be that present with his people.
Completely agree. I got notes, thank you, Carly, shared with me from KWYP. And I love that he said, like, the playbooks are here. What brings you the most joy? And he said, if you want to build a business around social media, do it. If you want to build a business around open houses, do it. You need to ask yourself, what brings you joy and fun? Like, what are you the best at? And, I think we get in our heads about business is low. Well, could you be making cold calls? Could you call FSBOs? Could you call the expireds? And we 100% can, and that's a great way to bring business. But what brings you the most joy, and how do you double down on that?
I'll jump in, not having been there, but I've been having those sorts of conversations with a variety of agents recently. A lot of people feel like, oh, I know I'm supposed to do, the things that you just described, Jill. And it's like, well, your greatest opportunity and your greatest enemy each week is not like out there. It's the person looking you in the mirror every day. And so your ability to lean in to areas of strength, realizing that you're not strong at something the first time you try it, but time on task over time on the things where there's a natural inclination will always be your best result, which doesn't mean that you can't become a good cold caller if you're an introverted person. But like if social media is your thing, like crush it. And crushing it may not feel fun when you're getting after it. There is a grind, but all that to say, I'm with you there. Like lean into your passion, and there's going to be a grind element to your passion too.
Yes.
I've never made a cold call in my life.
You haven't, Carly?
I'll admit that. And I may never. I don't know.
Mhm.
I've never made a cold call either, so
Thank you. We're in the club. No, Wendy, the first thing Wendy said, because I think we're always like following the model, the millionaire real estate agent. We're like, I want to be here and I'm going to do these things and I'm going to get there. She got up there and she was like, do you guys know what base camp looks like at Mount Everest? And in my brain, I was picturing, I don't know if you guys have ever seen like all the tents and all the garbage because they can't get stuff off the mountain. And she was like, you can't see the top of the mountain from base camp. You don't know where you're going or what it looks like. Which was a nice reminder because we can have all these goals, but things can just shift as we are going towards them and change and life changes. Did you guys know they owned all those hotels and restaurants and stuff? I did not know that.
Wendy and Jay do?
With Gary.
Oh, that's
Got like a music venue, a hotel.
That's awesome. I've often wondered in Austin, like which are the hotels in Austin? I'm curious which ones are theirs.
I would assume, but
Diana, anything you would add from KWYP, what your biggest takeaway was?
I mean, I was just floored with the wellness stuff. Like, have you heard her story? She was hit by a truck while she was riding her bicycle.
and
they
shattered
told
her
her-
hip, like the
Yeah,
whole
they
side
told
of
her it
body.
would take her years to walk again. And her daughter was getting ready to start college in 6 months, and her goal was to walk her through the doors. And she did it.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
she
It was
they
very emotional.
basically told her it wasn't going to happen, and she was like, I'm doing it. I wish we had this is not related to her, but does anyone have that video of the kettlebell story?
Oh, that was so sweet. I don't. It was
Like
with the
everyone
grandpa?
cried.
No, I don't have it.
so
That
to
was so-
share. If
Ugh.
you guys, if you weren't there, they showed this. I think it was a commercial for something. I don't know, but there's this old man, and you don't really know where it's going to go with it. I thought it was going to be something about like him being lonely because you can tell he lives by himself, and he ended up. It started out like he's a little grumpy, and then he ended up getting more motivated and more motivated. And he would turn his alarm off and walk from his bedroom in his house out to a shed outside. And first it was just walking to the shed. And then it was, like the next day he lifted a blanket or whatever, and there was a kettlebell. And then the next day he moved the kettlebell. And then the next day, like he lifted it a little bit. And then by the end, it shows him like he's lifting this kettlebell, and you don't really know what the message is. And then all of a sudden it goes to, I got chills already. It goes to Christmas decorations and Christmas lights. And you see that he is at his daughter's house, and he ends up at the end holding up his granddaughter. I don't know why I'm crying. He holds up his granddaughter to put the star on top of the tree. And that's what all his practice was. And it was just the most heartwarming story. And also what a reminder of what is, like, back to the obsession and interest. And yes, like we need to pick an obsession in real estate, and also for a healthy mindset, like putting your family as an obsession as well. And it was very, very sweet. I need to find that, Carly. We'll share it at the next meeting or something.
I almost feel like
Love to
we
see-
need a club for people to like hold each other accountable for actually setting some boundaries and following their own rules.
Mhm. And it seems, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you said we need to find an obsession in real estate. I don't even think it needs to be real estate. I think we all just need to find an obsession to keep us motivated in some way or form, because even if it's personal, it's gonna lead over into your work life.
Mhm.
It's about what makes you happy, and were we saying earlier the joy, what brings you joy? I think once we find that, that's what helps and spreads to everything else.
Without a doubt. Just for the sake of time, I want to there were a ton of amazing agent interviews. Why don't we just start with, was there one agent interview that you guys took the most from, like one that really blew you away?
I loved the creative events people were doing.
Mhm.
I fully don't have time to throw everybody a housewarming party, but that was kind of a cool idea. The agent that did a monthly girls' night out with a local business, that was a cool idea.
Harley,
Also,
that was my like hands down favorite one, because I think when you go back to Gary's Finding Joy, she ended up growing her business on something. She said she was like a self-proclaimed, she liked to put people together. And correct me if I'm wrong, that girls' night out, did they like give back to a charity or something, each one?
I don't know if it was each one, but they would usually like work something out, feature the business, so it's kind of a double-ended thing. And if you think about the people that would be drawn to that, it's going to be a lot of like moms that want to get out of the house, and people that need a break. So they could make, she's bringing a lot of people that have stuff in common, and they could make a connection that way and bring all their friends. But yeah, she said some of them did go to charity. I can't remember the exact charity connection
Right.
that she would do, but those, I mean, if you think about your source of business, your sphere, people that I spent 13 years in the restaurant industry, and I tried to be nice to people, and a lot of them call me and refer people to me. And like the person I use as a cleaner, she met me there. I have a listing from one of her clients. So those genuine connections are infinitely more valuable than internet leads or any other thing that we can do. It has a 5% conversion rate, and your sphere is, your social media accounts, your email, your phone. Those are all databases.
Mm-hmm.
We don't think of them that way. They are.
I'm not sure if it was in that panel, like the events one or the girls' night out one. I think it was in that little segment. Somebody had mentioned, and I've heard this before, and I thought it's brilliant. And a great reminder is they had wild success with a top 50 list. And that top 50 list is not necessarily somebody who's even bought and sold with you, but she strategically used like people in the community or somebody at the mayor's office, or basically even people she wanted to be in connection with to like climb a social ladder, because if you're connected with them, they're connected with a lot of people in the community. And that was her top 50 is who she would invite to whatever her event was. It might have been the girls' night out lady, but I really liked the concept of a top 50 list, and it's the 50 of the people you want to be closer with. She spends more money on those, and I don't know if you heard that, but I liked that idea as well.
I wrote notes on that one. So she calls, so out of her 4,000 past clients, she has 50 in the VIP program. She calls them once a month. She does quarterly happy hours. She sends cards. And she looks for people of influence and that she wants to spend time with, so that she would actually enjoy being around. So she's very picky about it. And what I thought was interesting about that too is if she needed to move people out of that 50, some of them would notice it and reach out to her and say, hey, I didn't see this coming up this quarter for your happy hour or whatever. So she's like, it got people to re-engage, and she was always moving people in and out of that 50 and consistently getting influence in business from it. I loved it.
I love that too. I thought that was a brilliant idea. Did either of you get to see Ken Pozek?
Yeah,
I think
I was
this
going to
is him
say
coming back from lunch.
he's always awesome.
I would love to hear from that because I missed much of that due to an appraisal nightmare.
I just caught the end of it and I didn't have my notebook out. So, but more or less, he's just adding value through YouTube. And the biggest thing he said, my takeaway was, do one video a week and use it everywhere you can. Use that on YouTube, use it in your newsletters, communication with your database, social media. And by the end of the year, you'll have over 300 videos. Or I'm sorry, 50 some videos. That I thought that was great.
I think
go ahead.
was
Carly.
it him or was it someone else that we're talking about, like the YouTube algorithm, and the more videos you make about things that people might search for, the more likely it is to come up?
Yes, that
Like
would
that
have been him
video?
for sure.
Okay.
And if you guys don't know who Ken Pozek is, I would search him on YouTube right now. His last name is spelled Pozek. And he had moved to Orlando, didn't know a soul, wasn't from Orlando. And he is now he's one of the biggest teams in Florida and owns the Orlando area. And where he got all of his success from was with YouTube videos. And he said, the ladder of content, step one is doing YouTube. And he said we're so quick to jump on reels and everything right now. But he said for him, in his experience, it started with long form videos, which are 7 minutes, 7 to 8 minutes, maybe on YouTube. And he would do, like Carly said, one of those a week. And between 18 and 24 months, that ended up breeding about 100 leads a month for him. And then, he climbs a ladder from there, but he does a lot of reels now and a lot of short form video. And I think he's in step 4 now. He is leveraging relationships, but from his social media, he gets 700 leads a month, which is insane to me.
Yeah, that is insane. It's awesome.
It is. And you think he also mentions too, you guys, I didn't have all this fancy equipment in the beginning. You can walk with your cell phone, you don't have to get a mic. You don't have to get all the things. It's funny. My old coach has a podcast and she even said that her podcast, she said, Jill, I think they pay somebody to buffer the video and get rid of dead space, but it's just a Zoom between her and who she does the podcast with. So I think we get in our head and put barriers in front of why we don't want to do video or why we don't want to do a podcast, or, I need this tool or that's too expensive. And you just have to rip the Band-Aid off and try it and do it.
I agree. He was at the CEO Summit, Gary had him on, and he was great. But what was really cool is he doesn't have an office in the new office space he built. His office is a studio. He's like, because that's my one thing is creating content. And so he's like, when I'm in there, he's like, that's all I'm doing is creating content. So he's like, so I don't even have a desk. I don't have anything there. And I thought that was really a big aha, yeah.
That's a huge aha.
And get creative with your videos.
Carly, you're so good at that.
Oh, no, I am not. But who is it? Jeff McManaman? I know he's no longer with KW, but he has somebody on his team that make some kind of real estate content while they're eating hot wings.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hilarious. I have a friend in Boston that basically staged a Ring doorbell video, and it was like Boston realtor tackles DoorDash thief. I thought it was real when I saw it, but basically it shows someone, huh? He had to have faked that. It's got like 900,000 views on it, but someone tries to steal it and he runs across the street and like tackles them and puts the DoorDash back. So even, I mean, stuff like that, I don't know what you're referring to, Jill. My friend's video. It's got 963,000 videos, 8,000 shares, 70,000 likes.
Oh shoot, I just lost my train of thought with video, but I know what it was. I don't know. I think this was maybe at Mega Camp. I've heard it been said as well, like, don't, I mean, some of this is funny to do, but they also said, don't make all of your videos about making other real estate agents laugh. Like, even the memes we share, we'll do it to make other real estate agents laugh, but like, who is your target? Your target is buyers and sellers. So Ken was really good at that, at specifically looking, okay, so he's doubling down in Orlando. What are people in Orlando Googling? And it was not just about homes. Like, what are the 10 best theme parks, or what's the best thing to do in Magic Kingdom? What's the best thing to do at Universal? So on and so forth. And you could even Google, what are people Googling in Orlando? Or what are people Googling in Canton? What are people Googling in Cleveland? And see what comes up, or top 10 searches in Cleveland, and make your video from there. Because they always say we want to be the local economist of choice. And that's not just with real estate. You know, that comes, you want to be who your clients are going to go to for, hey, what hairdresser do I want in this area? What's the best restaurant? Are there any good gyms? What, you know, or even vendors, whatever it may be. But I thought that was interesting. Google, like, wherever you want your target area to be, you know, what can you double down on in that area?
Yeah. I forget her name, but the girl that was talking about TikTok, she said to end your videos not by saying, if you want to buy or sell a house, call me. She would say, follow me for all things real estate, or call me your real estate resource, things like that. So it's not just, people aren't like, oh, I don't live in that state and I don't know her, I'm not going to follow her.
Carly, I don't know if any of you, if you saw the full thing, I missed the TikTok girl, and I heard she was awesome.
She was doing like 130 deals a year below $100,000 price point. She was in like some part of Illinois, I think, just by herself.
Wow. That's incredible. And did all of that business come from her TikTok?
I think a lot of it did.
Yeah. That's interesting. Before we're like kind of getting close on time, did you guys all get to see Phil Jones, who's author of Exactly What to Say?
Yes, I was hoping you were going to bring him up.
Yes.
That's one of my favorite books to tell my team to read, because I don't like scripts.
And tell me, Carly, not liking scripts, what would you think his message is?
I mean, at least from his book, it's more about like reading what people are saying and how to steer conversations. And, you know, because there's a part in his book that I teach my team all the time, because I love the Exactly What to Say for Real Estate Agents book, where maybe you have somebody trying to make a decision and you could try to steer them, but you say, the way I see it is you have 3 options here, and kind of breaking those down in such a way that there's only one option. But even, you know, because, you know, I love my disc and my KPAs and all of that, communicating with people differently based on their personality type. I steer my entire listing appointment off of, why did you buy this house?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to go in like 3 different directions based on how they answer that question. So yeah, I don't know. I think he's kind of like read the room and respond accordingly, learn how to communicate with people. Would that be what you would say his message was?
Yes, without a doubt. And I've never read his books. I hadn't heard of him, and I can't wait to read them. I thought he was awesome. Chris, what were your takeaways from that keynote?
Really is what to say and how to say it
Mm-hmm.
at the right times. Like Carly said, reading the room, reading the conversation, actively listening, and not just saying, uh-huh, mm-hmm, yep, yep. I mean, that's showing people that we really don't care and we just want to get through the conversation. And I love he said the most, let's see, where is it? The least influential word on the planet is I. So he was talking about taking I out of your emails, taking I out of the conversation, because as soon as you insert that, it just totally pushes people to the different direction. I also love how he went over motivation and what that actually means and broke it down. And it's one of the most misunderstood and overused word. So it comes from whatever this Sanskrit or Latin, motive and action, and literally means a reason to move. And I just love that. You mentioned we have to focus more on motivation over, what was it? Focus more on motivation over the criteria in conversations. And one of my favorite things he said was, fear is not the enemy, fear is the fertilizer of growth.
Yes.
So I got to jump into Gary Keller's mastermind afterwards, and he was in there, and he was people were throwing out topics and word suggestions and emails and different things, and he would on the spot just know how to restructure it for it to just sound so powerful. And like, it was one of the coolest things to witness and see, because I was like, how, you're sitting there like, how's he going to word this one? And he would just come up with the way to phrase it. And I mean, the guy is amazing. So I can't wait to read his books.
That's awesome. I took a picture of, I don't know if you guys took notes. I felt so pulled because he started his conversation with, put your notebooks away, like just listen and be present. And I was, and then I regretted like not taking notes. I did get a few pictures of his slides, but he said one of those last slides he showed was the 4 cornerstones of conversational excellence. And the worst time to think about the thing you are saying is in the moment you are saying it. And his point was, I think, dual-sided. One, it's listen to people. Don't think how you're going to respond. Just truly listen. And then 2, also being prepared. I remember him giving an example of expecting, like, say you're going into a listing appointment, expect what the objections are going to be, like be prepared of, how to possibly answer that objection. That way, when you go in, you can truly listen to what they're saying. He also said curiosity is the fuel for great conversations. And I mean, we're big in the KW world. Tell me more about that. Or digging deeper. And we might think every single one of us perceives things in a different light. Mark, I think you're so good at digging deeper and asking probing questions. And I'm curious if that comes natural or if it's a muscle you've practiced. But digging deeper, because we all have a different perception of something. And how do we know that the way we just perceived what they said is what they were actually saying? And Mark, side note, are you just naturally good at that, or is it a muscle that you've worked?
I grew up in a home where kids were part of the conversation. So I think a lot of us live in homes. Okay, there's a kid's table, or, shut up and go watch TV. And so like dinner time conversation was central to the life of my family. And so I think I learned, I also, a big part of my story is that my dad's deaf, a lip reader, but not, conversation is trickier with him. So I think my siblings and I all had to learn to communicate with greater clarity and seek clarity on a higher level than most people do. So I think that plays in. But I think I'm one who thinks that every person is infinitely discoverable. Like every person has something unique about them. And so when we're tempted to say, oh, I got it, it's like, I don't get it. Why don't I ask another question to get it more? So I would say the environment I was raised in helped, but it's something that I really do focus on in my day to day.
That's awesome.
Thanks for saying that, Jill. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. You're like my role model with that. And where are we at on time? All right, let me just muscle through like his last two things he said as far as the 4 cornerstones of conversational excellence. People do things for their own reasons and not yours. So again, I think that goes back to listening. They are going to buyers and sellers, like they're going to make that move based around their reasons, not around yours. So again, just listening and understanding, really having, it seems like he had a great grasp of empathy and how to understand people. And then another thing Mark is good at, the person asking the questions controls the conversation. So if you guys are not a good question asker, I would, our coach has us do this, challenge yourself to write 5 questions a day. And don't start with the word why, because why tends to put people on the defense. It's the same thing as I. It makes people feel like you're just talking about yourself. I've noticed that since we've even left Mega Camp. If I'm saying, I just wanted to check in, or I hope you have a good day, they feel it's warmer if it's hope you had a good day, or circling back or checking in, not I wanted to XYZ. It's not about us, it's about the other person. So I thought that was awesome. And so before we close out, Carly, Chris, Diana, is there any last pressing thought that we did not cover that you would like to share? It's okay if not.
I thought Phil Jones said something that was great. Did I say his? I'm sorry. Is it Phil Jones? Yeah, Phil Jones.
I'm 99% sure, but I could be wrong.
Work to get better, not to be the best. Over time, better always beats best because better compounds.
That's huge. I love that. And Chris, when I hear that, it's when you're working to, again, like if you're working to be the best, it comes back to you focused and you centered. And when you're just wanting to get better, like it's always a little improvement. And when you just want to be the best, it's again, like less empathy for other people. And I question the motive.
I think he explained, because once you're the best, there's nowhere else to go. You always want to continue to work on being better. And it's that 1%, right? How do we get 1% better every day? How do we compound that?
That's the key to life. And did you say earlier, Chris, the Gary Keller stat, if you spend, the 15 minutes a day on something for a year, you'll be better at 90% of people. It's same thing with that. Like just be 1% better every day, commit to something. Yeah. Good deal. Well, any other closing thoughts before we wrap up? I thank you guys so much for being on. And I'm sorry that we had a little Zoom Snafu. I'm glad this is recorded. We'll edit out the beginning and we'll share it to all of our Facebook pages and YouTube so you guys have access to it. And if you did not see, go ahead and Lori posted the link for the Hallmark commercial. She said it was a Hallmark commercial. I think she's right.
Oh,
So there's a link. There's a link to that. And you guys just have a wonderful rest of your day. Mark, our next K1 event, it's going to be in person. Do you have the date? September, is it 26th?
So we've got one before that. So 2 weeks from today on the 27th, we've got a kind of a special interview. It'll be Zoom only with the Porter Group, kind of learning about their journey through failure. They've been in business for forever and they're megas based out of Memphis, St. Louis, and Denver. So really cool story. Should be a really good time. I'm also related to them, so there's that. Then on the 26th, yes, Scott Simon, author of a book called Scare Your Soul, is coming for a special event in person only at American Title Solutions in Fairlawn. We're going to have a top agent panel as part of that as well. That's the morning of Tuesday, September 26th. I'm sharp on that because we just did our September calendar video.
Awesome. Good deal. Well, thank you so much. And we hope you guys can make both of those awesome events. And thank you for plugging in today. You guys have a great day.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Thanks. See ya.